Oh my gosh,
There we
so
go.
much. Here we go. And welcome to Knowing Your Home Maintenance. I'm really excited for this workshop. I don't know about you, Ian.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm ready to learn.
Yeah, so this is next to How to Contract a Repair. This is one of my favorite workshops because I feel like time is just so precious and there's just so much to do all of the time. And we know that it's very important to put home maintenance as your first priority because by staying on top of things, maintaining things, that will allow our homes to, stay in good repair much longer, but will allow us to be more proactive instead of reactive, which will also ultimately save us a lot of time and money. So home maintenance is key in order to protect our investment. And so tonight we're going to go over just what we need to do, what we need to prioritize, what is an old wives' tale versus what's really important, and things for you to prioritize. So I think we're going to pull up our presentation here.
Absolutely.
And while Ian's doing that, there's going to be a disclaimer here on the first slide of my presentation. And it really just says that home maintenance is not fun. I'm not going to lie about it. It's really hard to prioritize the fact that, on a Saturday morning, we could go out for brunch or we could, clean out the filters on our hot water, our dehumidifiers or our, dishwashers or whatever. So it's really looking to trying to get us to put it first and making sure that we're making the right choices. So I am not seeing my presentation, Ian.
Great. Let's work on that for just one moment.
Yeah, so we're not going to be able to make home maintenance fun. I'm not even going to pretend to be able to do that. But I am going to help you reduce your to-do list, help it be more streamlined and more efficient. So that's what I can promise you. I can promise that you're going to feel good about those tasks that you are tackling and help you kind of weed out the ones that really don't do anything. So next slide. So I also want to point out that there is a Q&A section here in the Zoom. We wish we were in person. We wish we were seeing all of your smiley, wonderful faces. But unfortunately, when we started planning this series, we weren't sure what was going to happen with COVID. We do start planning this in December, believe it or not. And so we decided we were going to remain virtual in 2021. So there is a Q&A box down at the bottom. This is meant to be a conversation, this workshop. So please interact with us, submit questions, submit comments, chime in with things that you do at home so that we can make this as conversational as possible. So why should we do home maintenance? It seems simple, right? You want to, keep your home in good repair. It's probably the largest investment that you're going to make, or one of the largest investments you're going to make in your lifetime. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of it. But also health, comfort and livability, and durability. All of these things really take into play. Inner air quality. People may think that, our bathroom vents, the air vent that sucks out all the hot air, cleans itself. It doesn't. Surprise. The vent above your kitchen stovetop doesn't clean itself. Surprise. So those are things that will really help impact your air quality by taking the time to stop and clean them. It reduces toxins and allergies in your home. As well as making sure you're changing your furnace filters. That really helps extend the life of your heating systems, especially the air conditioning. It's sucking the air from your basement in, cooling it down, and then shoving it back out through the vents in your home. So you want to make sure you stay on top of those. And then again, durability. We want to make sure that we are checking things out, making sure they're in proper working order so that they will last. And again, give us a nice return on investment and in our value. Next slide. So how do we know what to do? This kind of seems like a silly question, right? But, you know, we buy our homes. I don't know about you, Ian. You know, I didn't do a lot of this stuff when I was a kid. You know, my parents kind of took care of everything for me, which was very nice of them. But when I bought my own house in 2009, I didn't really know what to do. It's not like they give you the keys and you turn it and then all this knowledge just gets into your head. Just like parenthood, I'm sure. I'm not a parent, but I imagine you don't know it all when those little babies pop out and they're cute and wonderful. You probably don't know exactly what to do.
No,
so,
you have no idea. Same with a house.
Yeah, right. So we really need to be able to do some research and really start to learn to prioritize what makes sense, what really does something, what's really going to help us. So we don't really know. And that's where Lakewood Alive, me, and this workshop really comes into play. Next slide. Okay, so things that we should really be, again, what should we really be doing? Time is precious. Who has the time to be tackling a bunch of things? I know it sounds like we're talking a lot about this, but it's really important for us to really prioritize what's important, and we are going to get to this. Something that I want to point out, though, is that we are living in a maintenance-free society, which means a lot of the things that we have, dishwashers. I had replaced my dishwasher on my 30th birthday, very memorable birthday gift. And the dishwasher that was in my house was about 30 years old, and it weighed probably 50 pounds. It had a lot of metal. It was made to last. Second, I put it out on the curb. It was taken by a scrapper because it had metal. It was a very good value. The new dishwasher that I got was all plastic, and I could lift it above my head by myself. So things are made a lot differently. And we are not necessarily in the mindset of thinking that we can repair something. I think we are always in the mindset that we can just go out and purchase something. Ian, I had a friend who had a leaking faucet. It was a Moen faucet. Probably a $300 faucet, one of those nice ones that has the neck, kind of a flamingo neck.
Those are nice.
With a little squeezy sprayer. I was pretty jealous of this faucet. And before I knew it, she was throwing it out. It was leaking. She threw it away and bought a new one, another $400 faucet.
Oh my God.
She didn't know. Moen has a lifetime warranty on certain parts. Also, you could have just gone up to the hardware store. It probably needed a new ring and replaced that ring for, I don't know, $3. But instead, she literally threw a $400 faucet in the trash because she was in the mindset, it broke. I just buy a new one. So, right. It was a really nice faucet. I should have, I didn't think about it, go and picked it out of the garbage and replaced the washer and put it in my sink, but I didn't do that. So again, with a simple little Google search, you can, find a way to repair something. So it's important for us to really think, what are we buying? Is it repairable? What's the value of it? And was it made to last? Or is it something that you should pitch? Is it easier just to pitch it and get something else and replace it? Next slide. Okay, so we're really getting to the meat of the good stuff here in just a moment. Just want to keep really hitting home that a lot of the things that we have, our systems, require annual maintenance. It's really important for us to get into this mindset. We need to watch our homes. Just as we kind of look at ourselves, how's my skin looking? Was that spot there before? You kind of got to get used to the territory. Your house is the same thing. Do you have moss growing in places that you didn't have it before? Do you have mold growing in places that you never had it before? Why are these things happening? And also, like our furnaces, dishwashers, dehumidifiers, bathroom vents, all of these systems require maintenance. So instead of being like me, which is I probably get the manual and I throw it away, we really are supposed to read them. Surprise. Ian, do you read manuals when you buy things?
No, I do try to pay attention to the instructions, but I usually just kind of jump right in, and then that causes problems.
So this is a word to those people out there in the interwebs. Let's read those manuals. Let's make a vow right now that next thing we buy, we're going to buy something like a dehumidifier, which we should all have. It's raining outside, or it was about 2 minutes ago. Our dehumidifier should be on right now, sucking out all that moisture. I know mine's been running a lot the past few days. You know, I didn't realize for the first 2 years that I owned it that it had a filter and that it needed to be cleaned. I didn't know that, not gonna lie. Now I know. So read those manuals, pay attention to those things, because you are gonna notice a change when you do the proper maintenance. They're gonna last much longer. They're going to prolong its life. So Ian, will you take the vow with me to read manuals and learn how to do maintenance on the items that we're buying?
Taking the vow. Let's do it.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so our homes are designed to be maintained. They were built 100 years ago. They were not built in the past 20 years where everything was designed to be thrown away. They are 100 plus. They are built to last. They have good bones, but they really need to be, taken care of. So we're going to start. This is where we're taking notes. We're going to start to take a look at what is going on in our homes. And we are going to be focusing on 3 main things: healthy and safe, solid structure, and tight envelope. Next slide. So, Ian, you gave the spoiler, but can you guess what the worst type of damage for a home is?
Children. No.
Dogs, cats.
Dogs. Yes. Animals.
Well, I know it could be all of those things, but it's actually water. Water is the worst thing that you can have coming into your home. Whether it's at your foundation, whether it's in the roof, whether it's a bathroom or a kitchen leak, a slow little leak, water is the worst thing that can happen to your home. So when you're walking around your house and you're taking in things, we're starting to look at the structure: healthy, safe, tight envelope, solid. We need to be looking to see what's going on, and water tends to be the #1 culprit. Next slide. Okay, so again, as I said, we're going to focus on these 3 main principles throughout the rest of our workshop: healthy and safe, solid structure, and tight envelope. So I think we're going to pop into healthy and safe. And so what does healthy and safe mean? If you know Lakewood Alive, if you've seen me talk or seen Ian talk, you've probably heard us say healthy and safe. If I had a nickel for every time I've said healthy and safe, I'd be able to do a lot of things, a lot of good here in the community. So healthy and safe means you are living in an environment that is not doing damage to you. The air quality is good. There is no sort of anything that's going to come and harm you. So it's important for us to start looking for these things. Again, we're making sure there's no water infiltration. Each season, you're going to walk around your house's perimeter. Now, I have a 100-year-old house. It's actually 115, and its basement, my basement looks like every year of that 115 years. It's scary down there, not going to lie. It's got some yellowed corners where water is coming in at times. I had a really bad leak on the one corner, and I installed a rain barrel, and that made a world of difference. I'm not quite ready yet to pull the trigger on waterproofing, but that's coming. But I keep an eye on my basement. Every time it rains, every rainy season, so spring and fall, I'm walking around and I am noticing where I'm getting water. So water is common in my basement. I know that. But common water in my basement means I'm seeing a little dampness in the corners. Ian, do you have any sort of water coming in your basement?
I do. We've got one particular area that tends to take in a little bit when it rains really heavy, but we also have a problem on the exterior that had to be addressed. So it was definitely a cause and effect.
So it's really important to know your home, right? Knowing Your Home is our series, and it's named that for a reason. It's very important for you to know your home. So if you always get damp corners, that's normal. If you start to see a river going through your basement, that's not normal. And what's causing that? So when you do your perimeter walk, you're going to check your foundation. Are there bushes and trees growing up against your house? If there are, it's probably holding moisture, and that's causing that to infiltrate your basement walls. You need to have a nice, foot distance between the bushes and the trees to allow for the water to not hold up against your house. So it'll also cause peeling paint. So it's really important to have, a nice distance between your home and any sort of greenery. Are there any missing mortar in your foundation? Take a look at those bricks in your foundation. Are there little holes? Water can get in there. Mice can get in there. That's the number one way mice get in. Are little tiny holes, and mice can get in, a penny-sized hole or smaller. They're rascals. They can get in anything. So, so you want to keep an eye on what's going on with your foundation. And then, do you have windows in your basement? Are they secure? Are they glass block or are they wooden? Are they on the driveway side or on the neighbor side where the grass is? Sometimes water infiltration comes in through those windows. I have glass block, which is a godsend, but I only have 2 air vents. So they're right across from each other from one side to the other. And I have 2 other windows that don't have vents. So in the summer, I get a lot of moisture down there because the air is just going like this instead of crossing across the basement. So that's why I like to run my dehumidifier all the time and on pretty full blast, because there's a lot of moisture going on down there and I don't have a ton of airflow. So if you don't have a lot of airflow in your basement, or you have the opposite where you have those wooden windows and air is just coming in all the time, so is everything else, water. John Turner, who's a friend of the organization, he did home maintenance last year for us, and he always talks about the angry water drop. You always have to think like an angry raindrop when you're trying to figure out where water's coming in, because angry water drops find the most unique ways to get into your house. So if they get pesky, we'll talk more about water as it goes on, but you want your envelope to be tight, as we talked about, solid structure, and healthy and safe. So we're doing our perimeter check. We're checking on what everything's looking like, and we're making mental notes, or we're even doing a step better, which is taking pictures so that we can remember what our foundation looks like. I can barely remember breakfast yesterday, so I'm probably not going to remember what my house foundation looked like a year ago. So it's important, especially if you have some damage happening, you're going to want to document it so you can notice the change. Okay, so how do we know that water's getting in? So in our basements, it's fairly easy. We're going to see the moisture. I have white dry locked walls. So dry lock is a waterproofing paint. If you are considering about dry locking and it's not been done before, call me, because there's some pros and cons that we should talk about. And so you're going to see the yellowing coming through with the dry lock, because dry lock only keeps that water from coming literally inside your basement walls, so into your house. It's still coming in to those bricks, but it's hitting the paint and stopping. So the yellowing is the water seeping in through the paint. It can only hold up that boundary for so long. It starts to then break down. So in our basements, it's pretty easy for us to see what water looks like. Now, Ian, have you ever had a roof leak?
Thankfully, we have not had a roof leak. Our biggest issue is where the driveway meets the foundation of the house, and that's where we have had a pretty big gap, but no roof leak, thankfully.
Yeah, so when we're up in our attics, if you have an unfinished attic, you can tell if you're having some sort of leaking going on, because if you look up at the wood, you're going to see little white spots. Little white spots means that the water has come through and it's dried out. So for wood, little white spots is a key that you're having a leak. Brick is kind of the same. You're going to see little white spots. So bricks are designed to take in water. I don't know if you knew that. They're designed to take in water, but they're also designed to push out the water. so that the water can go in and out. They're designed to breathe. So when we dry lock our walls, we are not allowing those bricks to breathe. So the paint is going to peel, the paint is going to bubble. That's going to happen because they're designed to breathe. You may see efflorescence on bricks. Say that 3 times fast, efflorescence. And that's when you see the little bubbling on the bricks. You'll probably see it by the mortar, and it's coming out of the brick, and it's little bubbles. That just means that moisture is coming through, and it's kind of pushing its way out into the brick. Sometimes you'll see it in the paint as well. So you want to identify where this water is coming from. Is it coming in, or is it coming in from your foundation? Is it coming in from the roof? You know, obviously look at the materials and try to identify where it's coming in. Next slide. Great. So another part of our Healthy and Safe crusade is to see if we have mold. Mold is definitely not healthy or safe. So if you are seeing mold, you'll see it in some common places, right? Bathrooms, sometimes in kitchens, and in basements at times. And so you're seeing that because the water is coming in, obviously, and there's nothing to suck it out. So I get calls often saying, I have mold in my bathroom. I have it in my tub, or I have it on my shower stall walls, sometimes on a ceiling. My first question is, do you have a venting fan? Number 1. Number 2, does it vent outside? And number 3, do you use it? So Ian, do you have a venting fan in your bathroom?
I do.
Do you know if it vents outside or not?
It does.
That's great. And do you use it?
Yes.
That's great. You are winning. You get a gold star for that.
We're trying.
When I first moved into my house, I always had a bathroom fan, but I didn't realize it was venting into the attic. So all of that moisture from my bathroom was going directly into the attic. And that's not good for your attic, especially if you have insulation. We had pink fiberglass insulation, you know, Pink Panther stuff. And it was molding around the where it was venting into the attic because the moisture was just sitting there. And I mean, I wouldn't have known that except we were finishing our attic and we identified it that way. But it's important that we have those fans, we use them, and that they vent outside. You can generally tell if you have a little hole on the side by your bathroom, kind of like a dryer vent. You can see that that's where your bathroom is venting out. So if you're not sure, you can go outside and take a look up at the window by your bathroom and see if you see any sort of venting going on there. It's very, very important that you use that. The same is with the kitchen. So, you know, you may see some mold going on there just because there's a lot of hot heat that's coming off of your stove. And oftentimes we only have the vent that recirculates the air. That's what I have. It doesn't vent outside. It basically spits it back in your face.
Yeah.
Just kind of cycles it through. There is a filter in there and it catches grease. So you probably want to make sure you're changing that regularly. But the best and ideal situation would be for you to vent your hood, your range hood, outside. As many of you know, talking about this for several years now at this point, I hope to redo my kitchen very soon. And the number 1 thing on my list is making sure that my stovetop vents outside. Granite countertops, bottom of the list. Venting the stove outside, number 1 priority. Do we have a question, Ian?
We do. We had a question. Aaron has asked, my bathroom does not have an exhaust fan, but does have a window that I open when showering. Even with the open window, it gets pretty humid. Is there a simple way to get better venting through the window until I can get a real exhaust fan?
So, yeah, great question. I'm not sure what your situation is at home. You could shower with the door open. That's number 1. In the winter, that's really great because it puts the humidity out into your house, which probably is very dry because we get very dry heat. So it could do that. But you could install a window fan that you could use to suck everything out, or make sure you run a box fan afterwards, and just, after you've showered and you're, ready for the day, you could push a box fan and just push it out into the house. But that is a tough situation in the summer because, if you're using window units or windows as you're cooling down, pushing more moisture into the house isn't ideal. So good for you. Keep using that window. It's that's great. That's what it was designed for. But really getting a fan, just some air moving, will help to remedy that situation.
Great. We have another question, but I think we'll hold it for just a little bit about front steps. We can stay here with mold for now.
Okay, great. So with mold, mold is black, but there is a difference between black mold and mold. With the magic of phones now, you can take a little picture of something and Google will tell you what it is. So you can Google black mold versus regular black mold. So you want to make sure you kind of have an idea if you do have mold. The easiest thing for you to do is to do a little mixture of bleach and water in a little spray bottle. It's about 50-50 mix, and spray it. Let the mold die and see how long it takes to come back. If it comes back really quickly, that means you have a problem. If it doesn't come back very fast, maybe a couple months or a year comes back, it's just that amount of moisture that you have in the air. But if the mold does come back quickly, it means you have a problem. If you are going to handle the mold yourself, please make sure you're wearing a mask and a kind of a heavy duty one. Like one that you would use for dealing with lead-based paint, heavy-duty mask. You'll want to wear goggles or eye covering and then gloves as you're dealing with the bleach in the water. Run your dehumidifier. If you see mold in your basement, more than likely it's, you have a couple other issues going on. Wet corners, our downspouts could be blocked and the water has nowhere to go. You don't necessarily have to jump to waterproofing. I love to talk to people about waterproofing. So if you are considering it, please call me. Please never ever do interior waterproofing only. Please, that's a common theme throughout these workshops, but interior only waterproofing is bad news bears. So please don't do that. If you are considering it, please call me. So again, make sure you're running your dehumidifier and those fans if you do get mold. If you are seeing wet corners, we're kind of jumping all over the place, and I apologize about that. But if you do see wet corners and you have some mold in your basement, more than likely those are coming from your gutters and your downspouts. So your gutters are probably blocked. Water can't, go in and go down, so the water's just spilling over and sitting on your foundation. Or your gutters go down into the crock. And basically is sitting there in the corner. And if it works properly, it goes down into a pipe and goes into the storm sewers in the street. If it doesn't work properly, that water is sitting on the corner of your home underground, and the water is just seeping in. So that's a really common cause, and there are several ways that you can deal with that. If you are getting wet corners, it's important to go outside and see how your house is reacting to rain. Are your gutters overflowing? When was the last time you cleaned them? Are they spilling over? Is it looking like a waterfall coming down the side of your house? I have a very tall house and I'm afraid of heights. We have a 28-foot ladder that we use to get to the top of our house. My husband has to go up there. I can't do it. So early on in our marriage, because he was working a ton of hours, we got gutter guards, which was amazing because then we didn't need to clean out the gutters anymore, and it was life-changing. It was an expense, but to us, we weren't able to do that maintenance of cleaning our gutters regularly, so we decided to add on the gutter guards. And we are surrounded by trees, so it really made a big impact for us. And not only did that help us keep our gutters clean, it kept those downspouts clean as well, so we didn't have to worry about having them snaked out regularly. So, it made a big difference. Next slide.
And Allison, before we continue on, I'll tell you, while we keep our gutters clean, and we also have a tall house, and I pay someone to come and clean them twice a year. Boy, there's one section of the house that no matter what we do, it's always the waterfall, and you can hear it. You can hear it hitting the gutter and then spilling out, and hitting the side of the house. And I'm always worried that side of the house is going to start getting water. Not sure what the solution is going to be, but it's a perpetual problem.
Now, is that the side of your house that always peels?
Boy, look at you. It sure is. Now it's on the back part of the house, so it's one of the shorter sections. But yes, it is. It's on the north facing.
Yeah, so we get a lot of people who call and say, "Oh, my paint job hasn't lasted really long. I had it painted 6 or 7 years ago, and I need to get it done again. So I want to get siding put on my house because the paint jobs just don't last." And my number one question tends to be, how often do you clean your gutters, and do you have a lot of overflow? Because that really reduces the lifetime of a paint job. So again, it just leads to maintenance. If we can get our gutters cleaned, keep them clean. So it's great that you have someone come out, twice a year to do that, but it really does help the longevity of things. The more we maintain, the longer everything lasts. Sure. So maybe a third time gutter cleaning, I'm not sure, or a gutter guard, at least on that side, might make a big difference for you.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Next slide. Okay, so now we're moving on to our homes and painting. So healthy and safe. Our homes were built early 1900s, 1920s, and at that time, lead was being used in paint. Lead was put into paint because it allowed the paint to be more flexible. So in our climate, that was perfect, because in the winters, it allowed the paint to be flexible when it was cold and freezing. And in the summers, it allowed the paint to be flexible when it was really, really hot and humid. And so the paint would expand and contract, and would have a very long life. They discovered that lead is bad and could cause neurological issues, learning disabilities, many, many different things. Lead actually gets ingested into the body like calcium. So it affects small children because of that, because the children, their bodies are always looking for so much calcium that it's willing to absorb whatever it needs to. And if children are ingesting lead, it absorbs that into the bones and into our organs and causes lead poisoning. So the federal government removed lead from paint back in 1978. And people talk about lead free versus lead safe. And that's something that we will talk about in just a moment. But as long as paint is in good condition, meaning it's smooth, it's not blistering or peeling, you are protected. Lead cannot harm anyone. If it is peeling or alligatoring, that is when you know that the lead-based paint has hit the end of its lifetime. It can no longer expand and contract. So when you see those cracks in the paint, that means it's lead, number one, and it's potentially dangerous because it is not a clean and smooth surface. So again, as long as the paint is in good condition, it can't harm you. So you can cover lead-based paint. If it's easier for you to throw on a fresh coat of paint, you can do that as a temporary covering to keep everyone safe. Or you can scrape it, prime it, and paint it, or use a heat gun to remove it. If you're doing any of these things, make sure you are wearing masks, gloves, and eye protection, because if you, even as an adult, if you ingest a decent quantity of lead dust or lead chips, you could be lead poisoned as an adult. Like a speck, if you can see a speck of lead dust could poison a child. So it's serious business. So you want to make sure that you are operating in a lead safe manner. If you do have questions about lead or lead safety, you can Google Renovate Right or how to protect your family from lead. That's put on by the EPA, or you can give me a call. Happy to chat with you about lead safety. Next slide.
And I've also learned with 2 young children that it's important to, particularly if you live in Lakewood or a surrounding zip code, to have them tested. And if nothing else, it gives you the peace of mind to know that your home is in good condition. But it certainly gave me peace of mind, and I was concerned and was pleased, thankfully, that they didn't have any lead levels. So it was encouraging.
Yeah. So they'll test up to age 6.
Right.
So it's important to ask your doctor if they aren't offering the test to have the kids tested. And I'm really sorry if you hear some dog whimpers. Axel is not pleased that he is not in here right now. So it's not me. It's a dog on the other side.
I was out of my window, and then I realized, no, I think that's Allison's dog.
Yeah, so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so we're still focused on healthy and safe right now, and HVAC is number 1. How is your system running? So is it laboring to keep it warm or cold in your house? Meaning, if you set it at 72 and it doesn't hit that temperature, if it's the heat, then it's laboring. If you set it at 72 and the air conditioning's on and it can't meet 72, that means your air conditioner is laboring. So that means either you need to have it cleaned or maybe it's at the end of its life. And I guess keep an eye on what the performance is on it. Meaning if last month it worked just fine and then all of a sudden it's not keeping up, then there's a problem. I just had my furnace replaced. If you've ever watched this workshop before, I had a Lennox Pulse furnace. I loved this furnace. It was created by NASA in the late 80s, and it was 96% efficient in the late 80s, which is like mind-blowing. I don't know if you're nerding out right now, but it's pretty amazing back then it was that efficient. Currently, you can still get 96 or 98% efficient furnaces. But they were about 20 years ahead of the game. And it lasted about 35 years, and it did so great. And it went out in the polar vortex, and we were able to get it up and running. And it went out again this past winter, and the motor burned out, and we decided to pull the trigger. It was very, very sad, and get a new furnace. But let me tell you, I didn't know how good it was, meaning if I would have gotten a new furnace sooner, my home is warmer, and it's my electrical costs are a lot less because the motor is newer and more efficient. So I loved the old furnace very much, but I probably should have had it replaced a couple years ago instead. But I was having it regularly serviced, so make sure you add that to your maintenance list. Once a year, have someone come out and check your furnace and your air conditioner. Ian, have you had that done yet this year?
I have. Our good friends at Slife Heating and Cooling help me out every year.
Yeah, me too. I love them. They're great. But there are many, many licensed, qualified people who can help you. But I think we're pretty much a Slife household at Lakewood Alive. But
yes.
So making sure you get it done at least once a year, both your furnace and your air conditioner, is so important because it'll allow you to prepare. They're going to tell you the status of your furnace and how it's changing. Every year, if you go down and looked at the maintenance log for the Lennox Pulse, it was like getting older the next year, still getting older. And then the final year, they're like, not going to last very much longer. And then it went out like a month later. So they were pretty spot on about the lifetime of my furnace. So it's important to have that regular maintenance. And then filters. We need to check our filters regularly. Depending on the type of filter you have is dependent on how often you should change it. So I think we're inclined to buy like the thickest, like the baddest ass furnace filter you could find at the store, right? Like we're thinking that this big heavy duty filter is clearly going to keep our furnace clean and our ducts clean. But what I've been hearing is that those are called motor killers. And you can tell if your furnace filter is too thick, which I never thought was even a thing. Did you know that was a thing?
Nope, no idea.
So if you were, while your furnace is running, if you were to remove the filter, slide it out, and the motor like takes a big sigh, like it slows down, like a big sigh of relief, it means that you're over filtered. It's struggling to keep up, you know, it's working really hard. And then there are the ones that are like looks like dental floss. It's like green and blue, and there's like, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird web, yeah.
That's also not good. It's too open.
Right.
Dust particles can flow in and out of there. So you want to kind of find the happy medium. The one that you're supposed to change monthly is perfect. Slife told me when I had that kind to just make sure you get the middle of the road one, not the super duper fancy and not the, you know, kind of low end one, because you don't want to kill your motor and you also don't want a bunch of dust getting in there. And then pay attention. So the new furnace that I have is a 6-month filter. I paid to have an air filter put on it, and the filter is like this thick, so thick compared to what it used to be. It's like this thick. So I read the manual and they told me I have to replace it every 6 months. So now I have a reminder on my phone to make sure that I keep up with it. I have 2 dogs. There's a lot of dog hair flowing around in here. So, you know, I want to make sure I'm staying on top of that and keeping it clean. And again, this really just reiterates why you should have your system checked once per year so that they can tell you if you're using the right filter or not, and, you know, that everything's up to snuff. Next slide.
Hey, before we continue on, we do have one question. It's just a kickback to lead, if we could, before we get too far away from that. Aaron wrote again that that they have a clay block foundation that was painted with multiple layers many years ago. That paint is now flaking off. Some areas have almost no paint left, and some areas are in good shape. Is there a good way to paint over lead paint in the basement, or is scraping best?
So, Aaron, do you know that it is lead-based paint? That's my number one question. And if you don't know, you can get a test at Home Depot or Sherwin-Williams. It's a little like rubby test, and it'll turn pink if it's lead-based paint. They tend to be false positives instead of false negatives, which is great because we always just want to presume that something is lead-based paint. I know I'm kind of sounding like hypocritical right now, but we should always presume paint is lead-based paint. But the reason I'm asking about the basement paint is because the more layers of paint you have on your basement foundation, the worse it is. So I'm kind of hoping for you that it's not lead-based paint so that you could scrape it and remove as much of it as possible. You can still do that, and you should try to remove as much paint as possible, but you will want to take a lot of precautions. Again, that heavy duty filter, it's the pink filter. You can get those at Sherwin-Williams. They kind of look like a scary, I don't know, like a Cold War style mask, I guess. I don't know what else to call it, but they got 2 little filters on there, and they cover your nose and mouth. You just need to protect yourself from the lead dust. You can use a heat gun, which is safer, but again, you're going to want to take precautions. And then you're also going to want to do wet scraping. You never want to do dry scraping. A little squeezy bottle. You don't need it to be like sopping wet, but you do need it to be kind of damp so that when you are scraping, there's no dust in the air. And then Aaron, please feel free to call me or email me. This is a lot of inside baseball right now. But you're going to also want to make sure that your furnace is off, your air conditioner is off. Whatever's sucking air into your house when you're doing this, because you don't want that lead to get into your air filtration systems, you're going to want to kind of close off any things that would be sucking air. And then also making sure that you have drop cloths down and vacuums, a HEPA vacuum, which you can get through our toolbox, the Lakewood toolbox if you don't have one. So there are precautions that you want to take, and I'm happy to, Ian, you might be able to see Aaron's email address. send them additional information to help them get started.
And so when you two do speak, he reports that he did the Home Depot test and it did turn pink. Seemed like the top layer did not react, but the lower layer, that one turned pink.
Okay, great.
So we'll get you guys get you connected.
Great. Yeah, so yeah, Erin, let's chat. I'd be happy to talk with you further. And you'll want to scrape it down, and it is definitely doable, but you just want to make sure you do it in a safe way. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we're still in healthy and safe land. We do have two other layers that we're going to talk about again, tight envelope and sound structure. Carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. They have lifespans. Ian, did you know that?
I did once I started working with you and at LakewoodAlive.
I had no clue until I started with myself at LakewoodAlive as an adult. I had no clue as a younger person, or even when I bought my house in 2009, I had no clue. But they have an expiration date on them. Smoke detectors will last 10 years. Carbon monoxide detectors will last 5 years. And when you purchase them, put the date that you buy them on there with a Sharpie marker. But they do, most of them come now with a sticker that says either a born on date or an expiration date. And you want to make sure that you change your batteries regularly. You can purchase 10-year tamper-proof smoke detectors, which is great because you kind of set them and forget them. Obviously, you want to test them once a year, but make sure they beep. But then you don't have to worry about batteries. They are going to just kind of keep going for 10 years, and then they're going to let out this horrendous noise, basically 10 years to the date, in the middle of the night to tell you that they are expired. That happens all of the time. It's never during the day. It's never during daytime hours. Only at night do they go off and tell you that they're dead. So definitely make sure you go after this workshop and check your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors to make sure they're still good. Again, smoke, obviously, you know, we're familiar that's associated with a fire. There is a smell to it. You want to get low and kind of crawl out. Always create an emergency escape plan. Carbon monoxide, though, is odorless. And it's something that unfortunately people just fall asleep and they don't wake back up. So that's where that maintenance comes in on your heating systems. You want to make sure that they're operating correctly and that you have working smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. Ian, I had a client a couple years ago who kept complaining about headaches and, you know, had to actually like move out of their house temporarily because they just kept getting headaches and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they had I asked, have you had your furnace serviced? And they said, no, it's been a while. And it turned out that the chimney that the furnace was venting into was blocked. And the carbon monoxide was just coming back in and causing headaches. And she would have never known because it doesn't smell like anything. It's not like cooking gas that smells like rotten eggs. It's just, you don't even know. So this is, again, an important maintenance thing. Keeping our smoke detectors up in good repair, carbon monoxide, and our furnace and heating systems.
That's a pretty scary story, and the fact that it's odorless makes it even worse. So staying on top of the maintenance, I couldn't agree more. We had a carbon monoxide leak that we weren't aware of until an unrelated issue brought in a plumber, and he looked at it and said, your hot water tank is not venting properly. I think you have a problem here. Even though we had a detector, it wasn't in the right place, and it wasn't picking anything up. And so we had to get that taken care of, and thank goodness we did.
Right, and on the boxes, they tell you where to place them, where, you know, for optimal, follow those rules. Again, I think we just open the box. It looks pretty simple, self-explanatory. There's 2 screws in there and a little holder. We put it somewhere. A lot of people put it, you know, on the side of the wall because they're either shorter or it's easier. They don't have a ladder. But you realize that that's not the optimal place for them. On the box, there's directions. Again, we're committing to reading manuals and directions.
The manual, I just threw the box away. See?
Yeah, no, me too. Before, now I, you know, would not do that because we're, for many reasons. But excuse me, It's important for you to make sure that they're installed properly in the optimal location. Again, Lakewood Alive can help you with that if you've thrown away your box and you're not sure. And we also can install smoke detectors for you free of cost. We partner with the American Red Cross, so feel free to give us a call. If you have old smoke detectors, call us. We'll install 10-year tamper-proof smoke detectors in your home free of charge. Doesn't matter where you live. Well, you have to be in Lakewood. But income guidelines don't apply to this program, so we're happy to help anyone who's interested. Next slide. Okay, so we're kind of done with healthy and safe. Now we're moving on to solid structure, and this is probably where that step question is going to come into play. So whenever you want to ask that one. But so I'm just going to wrap up healthy and safe. Again, that really applies to our home, keeping us safe. So we want to make sure we're keeping up with everything, mold, air quality, water infiltration, everything else. Now we're moving on to the actual structure of our home and how to keep our house solid so it'll last for another 100 years. So again, we're going to get to a home maintenance schedule. It's on LakewoodAlive.org, and we'll talk about it here shortly. But it's really important for us to keep an eye on our homes, as I've mentioned several times, kind of watch how things progress and just see if we need to maintain something or if something's a major issue. So number one is our foundations. You want to go around and check your mortar. That's the little concrete glue that's in between your different bricks or your concrete blocks. Whatever your structure is, the glue in between it, you want to make sure it's good and solid. If you touch it and it crumbles and a lot of big chunks are coming out, it's time for it to have some maintenance. If it looks real solid, then you're good. Check your chimney. I think we forget about our chimneys. Most of us are only using them for our hot water tanks at this point. We have a lot of new modern furnaces that are venting out the side of our home. Sometimes we have a fireplace that actually works in our house. I'm not that fortunate, but if you are, you have a chimney for that. And then you have the accessory chimney. Again, that's where your hot water tank vents out, or if you have an 80% efficient or less heating system, whether it's a boiler or a furnace, you're going to be venting into your chimney. You always want to check and see what it's looking like. Are you missing mortar? Are there bricks that are starting to fall out? You need to keep an eye on that because they could just fly off and hit your neighbor, hit your car. And also, if you maintain it, that'll be less work in the long run. Rebuilding a chimney is a couple $1,000s versus having someone come out and check your mortar, which is, maybe a couple $100s. So big difference in pricing. And then your entry steps, whether they're wooden or masonry, you're going to want to walk on those. I got in trouble a couple years ago. The mailman stepped on my step and it cracked. And then they left me a note that said, "We will not deliver you mail until you fix your steps." And I was so embarrassed by that because I tried to shovel for the mail person. I tried to do all that I possibly can, and I didn't realize that my step was not in good repair. So embarrassing. So we ran out and got a new step tread and replaced it right away so that we could get our mail. And I could leave an "I'm sorry" note for the mailman. But, you use those, guests come. It might be your primary entrance. You want to keep an eye on that. For wooden steps, if you're looking at a new set of steps, it's probably about $500. So not terrible if you need to replace them. Masonry steps, you're looking at several $1,000s. It's important to stay on top of that maintenance because they'll just last and last if you maintain them. The most common issue with masonry steps is that when our homes were built, most of those steps were not put on footers. A footer is a support. So whether it's a stone support or if it's a concrete support, kind of a tube that was poured with concrete and then they built the steps on top of them, basically to support them and prevent them from sinking. If you have a footer, your steps will last forever and ever. If you don't have a footer, if you're walking down the street and you notice a step that's, most of them are splitting down the middle, often they're kind of leaning in a little bit. It's because nothing has been supporting it. And we've been walking on them and putting all of our weight on them for years and years and years. And now they're just starting to collapse in on themselves. So unfortunately, in those situations, mortar is not going to keep it from doing that. But it did take about 100 years for that to happen. So it's usually a slow decline. Is that what's happening on your steps?
Yes, on our back steps, and there's nothing supporting it, and it just gradually bowed inward until it cracked. So,
yeah, and they snap. The sandstone will snap.
Yeah.
Or bricks will start, because of the weight, the bricks will start pushing outward. So it's unfortunate, but the nice thing is they can unbuild your steps, put the footer in, and then rebuild your steps. And if they're in good shape, meaning the brick is in good shape, they can just reuse the supplies that you have, and you don't have to bring a new brick. And the trickiest part is getting the mortar to match, because the historic mortar color maybe was like the mason kind of took some dirt and mixed it in with the cement mortar and kind of tinted it a color, but it's not a real color. Or it's got 100 years of grime on it, and it'll be really hard to get a fresh mortar to match the old mortar. It's doable, and there are so many quality masons who can do those things for you. But you can notice a fresh mortar job if the person didn't put the time into matching the mortar. So, but masonry steps are amazing, but they are ones that you want to make sure you're maintaining along the way, because they're very expensive to have to rebuild them. So I think we're going to move on to the next slide. But before we do that, I call it the jump test. When you walk up your steps, if they're really springy, kind of you do like a little, just push your feet down and do a little bounce. If they're really springy, that means there's a problem. You probably need a new stringer or two if it's wooden steps. And obviously this is just a wooden step thing. It's not gonna, bad news bears if it happens on your masonry steps that they're all, that they are that jiggly. But if you do have spring in your steps, that means that you do need to do some repairs on them. More than likely, again, adding stringers, which are the wooden supports. They look like steps, little notches. And so the footer problem is with the masonry steps. A stringer problem is with your wooden steps. They tended to not be built with enough stringers to support them. So, you're usually going to have 3 to 4 stringers on a wooden set of steps. And the old school way to build them used to be like 2 to 3 stringers. And now we're recommending 3 to 5 stringers, depending on the size of the steps. So if you do have spring in your steps, it means that you probably need to do some maintenance or potentially rebuild them. Next slide.
And before we continue, we're going to ask the question now from a little earlier on. One of the attendees just said, I have front steps that are slate. Are they safe to power wash clean? Do I have to seal them like I would concrete?
So they are safe to power wash, but with all power washing, you're going to want to make sure you use a low pressure on your power washer. If they are painted in any way, shape, or form, you're really not supposed to power wash, because if it's lead-based paint, it could shoot it all over the place. But you could definitely power wash. Make sure you go on the very lowest setting. You might be able to increase it a little bit, but you're going to want to do it slowly, because if it's a sandstone or slate, you could, if it's thin, you don't want to crack it. So light pressure, maybe even start with a hose instead of a pressure washer and see what happens. You can seal it, but you're going to want to make sure that you get a proper sealant. I would recommend going into Sherwin-Williams or a local hardware store where you can talk to someone who knows what they're talking about before you apply a sealant. I guess my question would be why you want to apply a sealant. If you're seeing something happening that you believe needs a sealant, or what the purpose would be. If there hasn't been a sealant on it, then I would say you probably don't need to add it. But if there's something that's happening and you believe a sealant would remedy that situation, but you always want to read the label of whatever you're applying to make sure that it works. You could Google, or again, go to Sherwin-Williams or a very knowledgeable store about that sealant.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, solid structure. So porches. Lakewood is a city of porches. We have all different kinds of porches. We have wooden porches. We have brick porches. We sometimes have brick with a cement top. We have, if you have a newer porch, you may have a PVC or a plastic type wood as your porch decking. There are decking porches, and then there's tongue and groove porches. So we have so many different kinds of porches. Number one thing, though, they all need to be sturdy. So you're going to want to do your walk test, kind of like the bounce test, and walk across it and give good bounces along the way. If you feel any sort of give, if you feel any sort of spring or bounce, then that means you probably need to do some maintenance. It's important to do this in the spring and the fall because, again, if you can do small maintaining to these porches, it's going to prevent you needing to do major projects. And I think the most common issue we see with porches is that either they've hit the end of their life. The lumber, is about 100 years old. You can tell if you have old lumber, if it's starting to get furry, like it looks like dog fur, or just, you'll know what I mean when you see it. It's furry. The wood is furry. And that just means that it's hit its useful end of life. It might be salt that caused that, or it could just be it's lived 100 years. And so you're going to want to either get another joist in there and connect it so that it gets, you can screw in your floorboards to something solid, or you may have to start fresh and take the whole porch down. There is some really nice anatomy of a porch on the city's building department website that gives you all of the knowledge you need to know about rebuilding a porch here in Lakewood. Materials have really changed. So if you are thinking about rebuilding, you may want to, you can call me or go to Cleveland Lumber and check out all the different materials that have come in that are very low maintenance. So a PVC or a plastic product really is a lifetime of no maintenance. It's dyed a color all the way through. So if it gets scratched, you don't have to worry about touching up the paint. And lumber is very expensive right now, as well as it's not old growth wood. It's pretty new. So a pre-primed pine, say that 3 times fast, pre-primed pine of this generation tends to rot out in like 5 years. Pre-primed pine from like 20 years ago was a whole different animal and would last a very long time. So you really have to kind of research the type of materials that you're using when you're doing these home repairs. And again, we're happy to walk you through anything. Or again, Cleveland Lumber is a really great resource. Okay, so porches, you're going to want to check those regularly. We're going back inside and we're going up. We're going to check our roof for leaks. This is very important, again, for keeping a solid structure. Water. We want to make sure water is staying out of our homes. So if you have an open attic, get up there and check it fairly regularly. I have a finished attic now, and I have a ridge vent. So I have a peaked roof, and I have a little vent across the top. So you can have boxed vents, which are those square boxes that you might see on the side of your roof, and that allows the hot air to escape. Or more common nowadays are ridge vents. Ridge vents go along the peak right at the top. You can't even really tell that anything's there. They put a vent in and then they shingle over the top of it. So it allows airflow to come through. Every once in a blue moon, if the wind blows in a very unique way, I cannot tell you what it is, and it happens once every 3 years, I get a little water spot in my attic ceiling because the water comes through the ridge vent. Like, it didn't happen during Hurricane Sandy. It didn't happen, you know, with the bad storms that we've had recently, but like one storm in random, you know, 2018, we would get a little leak here and there. It's important to watch and see what's happening, because if I didn't realize that it happened so infrequently, I would have thought that I had a huge roof leak and I had a big problem. But because I was going up there and kind of checking it regularly, I was noticing that that water stain had been there forever and ever, and it's not a new problem. So it's really important for you just to pay attention. If you have dormers, so those are those little dog houses kind of off of your roof, there's flashing, so a metal part that connects the dormer to your house. So the metal part acts as a connector, and then they shingle over it so that the water can't come in between the dormer and your actual house structure. Wherever you have flashing, that tends to be the most common place that leaks. So it's important just to keep an eye on it. I mean, there's parts that you're not going to be able to see, but you can use your inside to kind of judge and see if you're getting any leaking. But they caulk that. You want to make sure that it stays flat and that the caulk is in good shape. So if there are parts of your roof that you can see, you're going to want to look at those parts and, you know, do your best to see what you're seeing. The average lifespan of a roof has really changed. It used to be 20 years was the average life. Now, if you've had a roof put on recently, they probably told you it was a lifetime shingle. Now, when you ask people, what does lifetime shingle mean? Nobody can tell you. You generally get a warranty on the labor, and you get like a rough warranty on the materials. And the fine print, it generally says like, we'll transfer this warranty once to another owner, or, you know, it's a rough lifespan of about 30 to 40 years. So again, this goes back to our manuals and reading the fine print. If you're getting a new roof done, or if you bought a house and inherited this warranty, it's important for you to read the fine print and really get an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. I had a 7-year warranty on my roof. I could tell that some of the flashing and the caulking was drying out in like year 6. And so you best believe that I called that roofing company and had them come out and re-caulk my flashing, because I was under warranty and I wanted to make sure that I could get the longest life I possibly could out of it. So knowing your warranties, reading the fine print will really help us, will help you kind of get that routine maintenance done and prevent some catastrophes down the line. Again, if you're up and you're looking for roof leaks, look for white spots, look for wet spots, use a pencil, circle the spots on the roof or on your ceiling and see if they get any bigger. Just a little pencil line. It's a great way to, or take a picture and put like a quarter or something up there, whatever you feel comfortable with, but something that will allow you to gauge if something is getting larger. And then if you have plaster, you'll probably start to see pooling and bubbling when you're getting water kind of sitting in places. So keep an eye on your ceilings and see if you notice any changes. Next slide. Okay, so you're going to want to walk around and take a look at your roof to determine, you know, what the longevity of your shingles are. These shingles have hit the end of their life. So if you see any sort of curling edges, if you can see any sort of brittleness or missing pieces, as you can see here in the photo of the shingle, you can tell that this is the end of the life. Is there algae on your shingles? That is either the kiss of death, meaning your shingles have met the end of their life, or you are in a shady area. Your roof is shaded and it doesn't get very much sunlight at all. So the moisture kind of just sits there and allows the algae to grow. And so it's important to know, you know, is this algae here because of the trees above it, or is the shingle too old? If you do have algae growing on your roof, you're going to want to take it off. So you can call like a power washing company to come and do that if you don't feel comfortable getting up on the area that you're seeing the algae growing. There are chemicals that you can spray on the roof that will kill the algae. This is most common on a garage roof, but there are parts of homes, obviously, where algae will grow. There are also, I think there are zinc strips that you can just nail onto your roof. And so when it rains, the zinc then just kind of runs down your roof once it gets wet and will prevent the algae from growing. So there's tons of solutions if you have algae growing, but again, you're going to want to watch it and see what the problem is. Why is this algae growing here? And keep on top of it. And if you do have a really shady area, you can get shingles that have anti-algae chemicals on them already that you can just have them put on that will keep the algae from growing for several years so you can stay on top of it. So algae is something you definitely want to keep an eye on. Are you missing any shingles? You know, is it worth a repair versus a replacement? Is your warranty still up? This is again important for you to know so that if you have a couple years left on your warranty, make sure they come on out and get that repaired for you. If you don't have a warranty any longer, you're going to definitely want to have someone come out and repair. If it's, you know, a 10, 15, 20-year-old roof, you can probably get a good repair out of it. If it's a 20, 25, 30, 40-plus-year-old roof, you're probably going to need to get it replaced. So you can get quotes on that. You can tear off, or you can put up to one additional layer on your roof. So code will allow for 2 layers on a roof, no more. Back in the 80s and 90s, I think you could, no one was checking on that. So some roofs we've seen have 3 or 4 different layers on it. And it's a lot of weight on your house, which is adding a lot of pressure to the foundation and structure of your home. You can tell by just kind of looking up at the roof. You can see the different layers generally. You can tell how thick it is. So again, if it was a tear off and they put on some shingles, you can put an extra layer over it if you want to. It's up to you. It is cheaper to do that. It is a cost savings. But if you have leaking going on, it's not going to repair the wood that's underneath. They're just going to put another layer of shingle on there, which will then make it watertight for a certain period of time. Next slide. Okay, so we talked about this. I was not paying attention to my PowerPoint over here. So here are some ways that you can, again, deal with the algae. You can try a bleach and water mixture, or get those zinc and copper strips. Make a big, big difference. Next slide. Okay, so we've now covered healthy and safe. We've now covered solid structure. Now we're working on to tight envelope. So tight envelope means that you want your home to be weather tight. Now that means different things for different people. If you have a new build, your house is going to be a lot tighter than our homes. Our homes are never, probably never ever going to be as tight as a new build. You know, when the wind blows or we have a big storm that comes in, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting on the couch, I can feel a breeze on my neck often, or if I'm sitting on the ground, I can feel it between the floorboards and the wall trim at times. And so our homes are just old, and we love them most of the time for that. But there are things that you can do to create a tighter envelope. But again, there's probably going to be a big difference between a new build and our old, lovely, amazing Lakewood homes. Okay, so just to reiterate what a tight envelope means is if you're looking at a house, your envelope is your roof, down the walls, down into your basement. So that's your envelope there. That red line shows a house and what is considered the envelope. Next slide. All right, so when you feel the breezes that we feel in our winter or storm times here in Lakewood, you're going to want to check that your windows and doors are sealed properly. Do you have original wooden windows? Do they need to be glazed, meaning that kind of caulking that goes between the glass and the frame? Is that allowing extra air to come through? Is it the winter time and you have storm windows? Are those put on, and are they put on correctly? It's so easy to get brand new storm windows, and they make a huge impact. You can either measure yourself and have someone like Lakewood Hardware or Cleveland Lumber build you storm windows, or you can call a company who will come and measure and install them for you. There are also interior storm windows that you can get that add a nice extra layer of protection. They have springs on them, and you just kind of pop them into place, which comes in handy for folks who are afraid of heights or maybe have some mobility issues and they don't feel comfortable getting outside and putting on those storms. So interior storms can solve a lot of problems for you. So you'll want to, again, go around and take a look at your windows. I have terrible...
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Tell your story. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, again, you've probably heard it 7 times, but I have really old, crappy replacement windows. And I have to push up and down at the same time. I'm lucky that my arms are as long as they are, because I have to really push up and down so that they will close. They kind of smile at me a little bit at the top of the sash. And so if I don't consciously close the top and the bottom at the same time, I feel warm air, like with the air conditioning on. I can feel warm air coming in, or cold air coming in if it's the winter. So it's something that I'm contemplating whether or not it's time to pull the trigger on new replacement windows, or if I just want to bring in someone to repair them. I wish I had old drafty wood windows, but the people who lived here before me decided to get crappy replacement windows. So that's something you want to make sure that your windows close tight and that they close easily, because it shouldn't take pushing up and down at the same time to close windows. They should be able to function correctly and keep good air in and bad air out. Do we have a question about windows?
We do. Mark writes that many of his windows are missing the screens. Are there places in Lakewood that can put in new screens?
Sure. So there's a couple ways you can go about that. You can, if you feel comfortable measuring yourself, measure twice at least. You can get them made at Lakewood Hardware or Cleveland Lumber. And if you need, you would rather have someone else come in and do that, there are companies like, I can't believe I'm not remembering their name right now. A company in Berea, Western Window Service,
Western Window.
that will come out and help you with that, as well as some other local window companies can help you with screens. But that's a super easy fix. You can also buy the little ones, like if you're not, maybe you just have a couple and you don't have a ton of extra money to spend right now. You're probably going to spend about $100 per screen, depending on the size of the window. You can get those little kind of accordion style ones. They just slide open. You open up the window, shove the screen in, and put the sash down on the top of the screen to hold it in place. So you can get those fairly inexpensively, just as a temporary solution so that you can have good airflow.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, so definitely invest in good storm windows and screens. They make a world of difference. You can get aluminum, you can get wooden, whichever works best for you. And again, there are interior storms that are super easy to install, but it's definitely something to consider if you still have your original windows. They are amazing. I wish I had them, as I mentioned. They add a lot of character. So before deciding to install replacement windows, it might be beneficial to look into the cost of getting them repaired, because it might be more cost efficient to repair your older wooden windows instead of pulling them out and putting a new replacement, because the time frame it takes to cover the cost of those replacement windows tends to be longer than the lifetime of the window, meaning the energy savings that you get from that replacement window and the repayment time tends to be longer than if you were to just repair your wooden windows. But whatever works for you, and again, we're happy to talk to people through those process. So energy audits. If you visit our social media, sometimes you'll see we send out information about our energy audits. We partner with Dominion East Ohio Gas, and if you mention Lakewood Alive, they will give you a free energy audit and donate $25 to Lakewood Alive, which is really great. If you are interested, we can make sure you get that link. But an energy audit is basically where folks will come in and do a test on your home. So they will pressurize your house and see where your doors and windows are leaking. They will do infrared technology on your walls to see where you have insulation versus where you don't have insulation. They'll also check your furnace, your air conditioning, and your hot water tank to see how they're performing and if they are, basically how efficient they are, and they'll give you a report on that. And then they'll also leave you with some leave backs like LED light bulbs, low flow shower heads, low flow kitchen faucet heads. That basically adds some aeration to the water, so you use less water and you have a bigger water flow. So that energy audit is a great tool. It's not super duper in depth, but it will get you started kind of on your journey to making your home more energy efficient. And if you are thinking about making improvements, whether you're about to get a new furnace or a hot water tank or replace your windows, you would actually get credits from Dominion East Ohio Gas. So not even credits, rebates. They will send you a check. If you have the energy audit done and decide to make those improvements, they will send you a check and say thanks for making those improvements because you're making your home more energy efficient and you'll be using more gas, less gas, which makes your home more energy efficient. And so they're saying thanks for that. So an energy audit is a great place to start if you're not sure exactly what process you want to take to accomplish your goals. Next slide. Okay, so the coveted home maintenance checklist. This is a tried and true checklist. You can find it on our website under LakewoodAlive.org/knowingyourhome. You can find it there. And it has every single task you could possibly imagine to keep your home in good repair. So this is a bit excessive, but it's very detailed. And it tells you when to do it. So what to focus on between April and June. And it's both indoor and outdoor tasks. And then there's summer home maintenance from July to August. Again, outdoor and indoor tasks. And then we have fall, outdoor and indoor tasks, and winter. And this is what I use and what Ian uses and what we share with our clients in order to keep people focused and know what to do when. You know, it's a nice reminder to shut off your water that goes outside in the fall. So before it gets cold and your pipes freeze, it's a nice reminder to shut off your water before it goes outside. So shutting off your outdoor faucets to prevent freezing pipes. It reminds you to clean your gutters and downspouts, touch up peeling paint in the spring, because if you get ahead of that peeling paint, again, it will save you time and money in the long run. And it reminds you to test your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. It's a really great list. I hate to say it's kind of old-fashioned because it's a piece of paper that lists things out, and it's not good. Well, me too, but it's not going to ding at you. It's not going to say, hey, Allison, it's time for you to clean your gutters. You know, you got to put this on the fridge. But it is definitely something that keeps you motivated, keeps you moving, and it's a whole year-round approach to keeping your home in good repair. So it's something we're really proud of. We worked really hard on pulling this together. So please feel free to check it out. And these really are the things that will keep your home in good repair. And again, keep you moving through that process. Next slide.
I'm embarrassed to say I probably only do maybe about 20% of these. So gonna get to work.
You know, we can only improve. We can only improve.
Thank you for making me feel better.
So I probably do maybe 30 to 40% of those things on this list. So, but I'm improving. The pandemic, a silver lining, it did force me to focus more on things that I should have. And I've been doing a lot more maintenance because I've been staying at home more. I had a roof leak. I have a flat roof, a side porch, and we replaced the floor or the roof material a couple years ago. I'm not even joking, a couple years ago. And I had a leak on my ceiling in the living room, and it took me 2 years to fix, cut out the drywall, put in a new patch, mud it, sand it, paint it. I did that during the pandemic. I felt great, but it had been years that I allowed it to sit like that. But I also, yeah, and I knew that it wasn't leaking anymore. I gave it the nice, long, tried and true test of time to make sure that it wasn't still leaking. So
the plan came together.
It did. It did. So, all right. So if you are not a paper person, like I love paper, so does Ian, there are apps that can help keep you motivated and keep you moving. Keep calm. There's an app for that. Next slide. So there are home maintenance apps available to help you. There are 3 that we will go over here in this presentation. There's brightnest.com. It's free. There are home maintenance videos on there. They're not as good as mine through Knowing Your Home, but they are still informational. So you can find them on the app or on brightnest.com. And it helps you manage and track your tasks and important home maintenance items like paint colors, your filter sizes. I used to 16 by 25 by 1 was my furnace filter.
Same.
And now I don't even know, it's ginormous. I know in October I have to call Slife and they're going to give me a new filter. Well, I have to pay for it, but I'll get a new filter from them. But it was ingrained in my brain. But I don't know if it happens to you. I would get to the store and I would blank on what, like I can tell you 16 by 25 by 1, but I would be standing there in front of the sea of filters and I'd be like, was it 16 by 25 by 1 or was it 18 by 72 by 6? I don't remember. I don't know why I just froze.
I kept forgetting for the first 2 years that I owned a home, and every time I'd go to buy a filter, I wouldn't have anywhere to start. So instead of wasting the time, I finally saved a note in my phone, and so I could look at it. And now, after many years, it's now finally in my brain. But boy, the first couple of years, I was the idiot in the filter section who had no idea what was happening, and basically would just walk home empty-handed because I forgot what I was doing.
Or I would just buy 3 different kinds and then return the other 2 that didn't work.
You could do that.
But work smarter, not harder. And you can have an app on your phone that will help you keep this organized. Worse is paint colors. I am terrible. I always get a shade off. I have the little like touch-up paints and I feel like I never remember the names. I'm off by just a smidge. And so these apps allow me to keep, it wasn't Misty Willow Gray, it was Whispering Willow Gray. Whoever names these paints they are lucky and they're very creative because the color names are just amazing. But instead of wondering what the difference between Whispering Willow Gray and Wandering Willow Gray is, you can have the name in this app and it'll keep it organized. It's always with you if it's on your phone, and it will allow you to document when you do things. So when you had your furnace cleaned the last time, when you cleaned out the dehumidifier filter, when how often you have to purchase, ant poison or whatever it is. It's all going to be in here in this app for you. And this is free, and it is available with Android or Apple. Next slide. So there's another app, and so these were just updated today. So these are all brand spanking new apps that can be helpful to you. So the Home Savvy app, it's free, and it allows you to set reminders for your home maintenance tasks, and it does give you regular home maintenance tips. So this is a highly rated app. I think This Old House has rated this app, as well as a few other places. So if you are looking into an app, this might be the one for you. Again, those reminders really come in handy. I use a paper calendar, but for people who like to use technology, this might be a great way for you to stay on top of things. And you could put our paper calendar into your electronic calendar to keep you moving through that process. Next slide. HomeZada. So HomeZada is, you can get different levels of the app. So there is a free one that basically allows you to keep an inventory of your home. So it's good for insurance purposes. It's good for just kind of keeping on top. When did I buy this couch? How much did it cost? You know, whatever. Lots of different things that you can help keep your house inventory in order. Then there is one where you can pay $60 a year to keep track of your home maintenance tracking. So it will allow you to set up the reminders. It will tell you what you should be doing. So not only is there the DIY stuff that they tell you, you can also input things. And then there's a $100 version. So it's good for people who have multiple properties. So if you are a landlord or if you're an investor, this allows you to keep things in order for your different homes. So it's $100 for the year to have multiple properties. And they do give you regular updated advice on how to keep your home in good repair. So that's kind of like the Cadillac of apps, but it is available to you if that's something that you really want to look into. Next slide. Okay, so the whole moral of the story is don't put stuff off. You know, let's kind of keep up with our maintenance, do preventative work so that we don't have to be, you know, making split-second decisions. Oh God, the roof is leaking. My plaster is caving in because it's been leaking for months and I didn't realize it. Or, you know, if you were just walking around and keeping an eye on things and noticing how things were changing, you could have done some preventative work, maybe a few shingle replacements that would have kind of held off a full roof replacement. So never put off for tomorrow what you can do today. And make sure that you are following our home maintenance checklist. This will help you keep your home in good repair. It will help you to get to know your home. You know, my husband always wants to move to a different house. And I have to say that, you know, we want to upgrade. And we've been trying to, but it's kind of hard in this market. But one of the things that scares me most about moving is having to learn another house. I know this house like the back of my hand. I can tell you what a creak means. I can tell you what a banging means. I can tell you that, you know, every 3 months I have to tighten up the pipe under my kitchen sink, because if I don't, and I am doing dishes, it gets unloose, I think, from the dishwasher, and the water goes all over the kitchen floor. I know what temperature to set it at to make my house feel really comfortable. So like, I know this house so well. I love it so, so much. So, and that's basically because I'm keeping up with my maintenance and getting to know my house. So the more you know your home, the better it's going to work for you. And the longer you're going to be able to keep it in good repair, because you know when something's not right or when things are working well. Next slide. Okay, so we're at the end of the presentation. I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to answer them here. I'm sure other people are probably thinking the same things that you are out there in the world of the internet. Or you can always shoot me an email. Oh, I see my email address is incorrect there. I left out a W. So it's Urbanek@LakewoodAlive.org. So sorry, just seeing if you were paying attention. Or you can give me a call. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Basically, at Lakewood Alive, through our housing outreach program, we want to be your #1 stop for home repairs. Basically, if you know what you want to get done, but you're not sure who to call, or maybe you're not sure exactly what needs to happen in order to remedy a situation, we can walk through, come to the house, kind of give you some tips and tricks. Whatever we can do to make you make the most of your home is what we hope to do. So I thank you all so very, very much for participating in this workshop tonight. So sorry about Axel and his excitement of home maintenance. You know, he gets as excited as I do. So thank you all for spending your time with me. Our next workshop is going to be in September. It's about interior painting, best practices. It's going to be a hands-on one where we'll be at our workshop at our office. Matt Clark, our toolbox coordinator, will be with me, and we'll be talking about everything you need to know to accomplish interior painting to the best of your ability. And so I look forward to that. And again, please feel free to reach out at any time. We're so happy to speak with you. Thank you so much, and thanks to Ian for all of his help tonight.
Great, thank you. Bye-bye.